Glitchtale, the fan-made Undertale story that took the Undertale fandom on YouTube by storm. People love it for its beautiful art style, wonderfully choreographed fight scenes, and high-stakes emotional beats. But it takes some research through Camila Cuevas' Tumblr and/or the Glitchtale wiki to really appreciate the brilliance of its deeper lore. So, here I have compiled for all of you a complete explanation of everything that has happened in the series so far, taking information from Cammie's Tumblr and directly from Cammie herself so that I can do my best to have all the details of the deeper story correct. As of this video, the last episode to come out was episode 7, Hate, so if something else has come out since then, there is either an updated video on my channel already or I am currently working on making one. If you've already watched the last version of the timeline over on Cammie's channel, I've included for you timestamps of all the new information in the description. Obligatory spoiler warning for Undertale and Glitchtale itself, and let's jump right in. The key to understanding the Glitchtale timeline is to remember that it still takes place in the world of Undertale. Undertale famously takes traditional game mechanics and makes them integral to the way the game's world functions. In taking this super meta video game world and bringing it over to another medium, no pun intended, you can imagine that the resulting story isn't the most simple in the world. That being said, Glitchtale's timeline starts the exact same way every Undertale timeline does, with the war of humans and monsters, Kara's adoption by the Dreamers, Kara's and Azrael's deaths, all the other humans falling down, all the true lab stuff, etc. And then, finally, Frisk falls into the underground. Now, going back to the fact that this is all supposedly taking place within a game, we come to another crucial fact. In Glitchtale, Frisk is actually the player, with Kara presumably taking the role of the narrator. And the official word is that they're both guys here, so that's how I'll be referring to them, but it doesn't really matter, believe whatever you want. This version of Frisk then proceeds to play the game enough times to see not only every ending, but every single piece of dialogue, every secret, every fun value, which, just think about that must have taken forever. Like, he has to basically keep resetting until he randomly gets the right fun value. But this does make some sense since, to Frisk, even though he is the player, all of this is still real. For that reason, he avoids doing the genocide route for a very long time. But, for a player who has nothing else to do but experience the game over and over, this route is inevitable. And this is where Glitchtale really begins. Frisk begins his battle with Sans with full intent to completely finish this run. However, Sans proves to be a huge challenge, killing Frisk countless times. Frisk eventually begins to see that completing this route isn't worth it, and attempts to reset. However, Kara stops him, taking over Frisk's body and trapping him inside. Kara is almost able to overpower Sans, but at the last moment, a phrase which you'll be hearing a lot throughout this video, Frisk breaks out and blocks Kara's killing blow. Sans then absorbs Frisk's soul as he dies, allowing him to quickly murder Kara, and also to reset. A reset was never supposed to happen in that way or in that place in the story, but it did. Because of this copy of the game, if you will, begins to become corrupted, causing glitch after glitch that will keep building and building on each other until, eventually, inevitably, the game will delete itself. In the meantime, however, this small break in the game's code does not go unnoticed. Due to a glitch, which is short for because Cammie wanted to make it this way, Frisk is able to rename the fallen human after a normal reset. Feeling guilty after the near genocide run, Frisk knows that his next one will be a pacifist one again, but that doesn't stop him from wanting to experiment. Realizing that the timeline must be glitched, he decides to try playing the game on hard mode, hoping that he will finally be able to find a new ending. Also, this first reset is the point when Frisk throws the hate that had been generated from his genocide run onto Kara, but it doesn't fully take over him yet. Yes, it does look like Kara has the hate in episode 1, but just remember that at that point Cammie had not even come close to forming a complete cohesive story out of this, so just don't question it. Thanks to yet another glitch, he is actually able to make it past the end of the ruins and continue playing as if everything was normal. But Frisk is not the only one who wants to take advantage of these glitches. Watching from the void, i.e. the game files, Gaster is able to hijack Sans' teleportation while he and Frisk are teleporting from Waterfall to Grillby's, causing Frisk to end up in Gaster's secret corridor in Waterfall. Frisk, knowing exactly where he is, enters the Grey Door, expecting to find nothing but a small room with a harmless ghost of W.D. Gaster. Instead, he finds himself in the void with Gaster himself. Gaster traps Frisk inside and covers the reset button so that he can't just use it to escape. Then he attacks, hoping to take Frisk's soul and become powerful again. Just in time, Sans teleports in and saves Frisk, but is unable to teleport out. This forces him to destroy the door locking them in. This also allows Gaster to escape, causing him to regain more physical form. Gaster almost kills Sans and tries to take Frisk's soul, but his determination is too strong, and Sans absorbs his soul instead. With this new power, Sans is able to kill Gaster, sending him back to the void. He then resets one final time. This time Frisk, still playing in hard mode, is able to make it all the way to Hotland without any trouble. At his hot dog stand, Sans warns him about the dangers of resetting in weird places, as he can now remember previous timelines because of a glitch, but it's already too late. Through yet another glitch, Kara, now fully taken over by the hate, returns in physical form, feeding off the determination of the amalgamates inside the True Lab. Frisk notices some corruption spreading from the True Lab and goes to investigate. However, this is exactly what Kara wants. Kara throws Frisk into the DT extraction machine, hoping to get even more determination from him. Flowey, who has been watching Frisk ever since meeting him in the ruins, sees this and, thanks to yet another glitch, recognizes Kara as the one who silently threatened to kill him towards the end of the almost genocide route. Having no other options, Flowey tells Sans what happened, and they team up to save Frisk. However, Kara is successful in extracting the determination from Frisk, and is able to escape with it, as well as leftover determination extracted from the other human souls in the past. Sans takes Flowey and the unconscious Frisk back to his house in Snowdin. Frisk wakes up in Sans' lab, where Sans is almost finished repairing his machine. Surprise, surprise, a glitch causes it to actually work, fully bringing Gaster, who, by the way, was at least some kind of father figure to Sans and Papyrus in the past, back from the void, and then Frisk is scared, but Gaster's like, don't worry, I don't need your soul anymore, and then Frisk is like,
okay, I believe you.
Gaster takes the 4 of them to where Asgore keeps the 6 human souls, and Sans gives them to Flowey, allowing him to take his Omega form. However, Kara is one step ahead of them, and is waiting nearby, having absorbed all of the determination he stole from the True Lab. Gaster, Sans, and Flowey fight as hard as they can to defeat Kara and protect Frisk, but the hate that is still inside Kara is too strong. Once even the 6 souls inside Flowey run out of energy, all hope seems lost. But at the last moment, Frisk is able to muster back all the determination that was extracted and use it to reinvigorate the other souls, sending them back into Flowey. However, another glitch allows Flowey to absorb Frisk's soul as well, meaning Flowey is finally able to take on his true form again. Papyrus, Undine, Alphys, Asgore, and Toriel find Sans and Gaster in the castle, not far away from an impenetrable giant ball of hate that Kara created, i.e. Cammy's excuse to not have to draw a background for this fight scene. Inside the ball, Kara confronts his best friend, revealing that doing a genocide route had been Frisk's choice, then giving him the opportunity to press the newly formed erase button, getting rid of this already corrupted timeline for good. Azrael refuses, destroying the erase button. He and Kara fight, but Azrael realizes how to purge the hate from Kara when they both realize that they are both still wearing the lockets that they gave to each other. Kara destroys his, but this does not stop Azrael. He calls on the 7 human souls inside him, each of which fill him with their respective trait. Azrael uses these traits against Kara, causing him to finally remember who he was and to purge the hate from his own body and soul. However, this also rids Kara of his determination, which was the only thing allowing him to exist when he shouldn't have. Knowing that he is about to disappear, Kara uses his empty soul to house all of the traits that Azrael had collected during the battle, giving Azrael a new soul. This means that Frisk's soul can go back to his body, but still leave Azrael with enough souls to destroy the barrier. Azrael then reunites with his parents, and the monsters, and unfortunately the hate that Kara got rid of, go free. Frisk knows that this is it. This is the ending that he had been hoping for. But it can't last, can it? There's nowhere to go beyond this point. Nowhere, that is, besides a reset. But Frisk can't do it. He is finally ready to leave the game where it is. So, Frisk destroys the reset button. Realizing that he is the player, he just assumes that destroying the reset button at a point when there's no more game to play will just mean that he's quitting the game, and that everyone else will be able to live in peace. But he's wrong. Because the game is still in hard mode, Frisk continues to exist alongside everyone else, but he is no longer able to save or load. However, he is still the player, meaning that if he dies, the world will cease to exist. Frisk then realizes that something bad is bound to happen, and begins looking for a way to reset again. So, I bet you're wondering where all the prequel stuff is. Don't worry, I didn't forget about it. I just haven't gotten there yet because, at this point in the story, those events actually don't even exist yet. You see, when Frisk destroys the reset button, it forces the game to create a world on the surface for the monsters to actually live in. It also forces the game to create what programmers would call a checksum, which is basically a command that's meant to automatically fix anything in the code that isn't normal. However, at this point, the game is too broken to fix. The only solution is to destroy everything. So, the game creates a creature whose sole purpose is to kill the player, thereby erasing the timeline, the Bête Noire. And in creating both a surface world and this checksum, the game is also forced to come up with a backstory for it all. And this is what it comes up with. Millennia ago, before the War of Humans and Monsters, a younger King Asgore is friends with the human wizard Roy Goldburn and his brother Shane. Due to a so far unknown event, their friendship ends, presumably causing the brothers to side against the monsters in the war. After the war ends and the monsters are driven into the caverns underneath Mount Ebott, the barrier is created by 7 young human wizards, each with the power of a different soul trait. Copper Lightveil, the Wizard of Determination, his twin sister Agate Lightveil, a Wizard of Bravery, Milo Rootro, a Wizard of Kindness, Roy and Shane Goldburn, Wizards of Justice and Perseverance respectively, Rin Winterway, a Wizard of Patience, and Cody Fallenfire, a Wizard of Integrity. An unspecified amount of time after this, Copper and Agate's mother dies while giving birth to Amber Lightveil, who ends up having a 2-traded soul, both kindness and integrity. The 3 siblings live in harmony for 14 years, and during that time, Copper and Agate are given rule over the kingdom for an unknown reason. However, one day, the 2 siblings get into a heated dispute over what to do with the monsters. Copper wants to destroy the barrier and let the monsters go free, while Agate thinks that keeping it intact is a good way to keep the peace. They decide to settle the dispute with a duel. Although Agate is more powerful than her brother, she is unable to overcome Copper's determination. Humiliated at her loss, she completely loses her trait and then flees, her mind now bent on trying to find a trait that could beat determination, a way to ensure that humans and monsters would never live in peace. And then, finally, she finds it. A spell that inverts her trait, turning her soul dark orange, turning bravery into fear. She then returns to her kingdom to challenge Copper once again, this time making him lose his determination by first killing Amber. Amber's existence is never recorded, and her name is lost to history. Once both of her siblings are dead, Agate realizes that her soul is about to crack from the sudden change that the spell had caused it to go through. So, she performs one of the most dangerous and forbidden spells known to humankind, sacrificing her soul and creating a bête noire, the most powerful and destructive being imaginable. As Agate dies, her soul, which has now turned pink because of the bête noire spell, uses Amber's dead body as a host, which for some reason is shown by Agate's soul sucking Amber's body into itself. Okay, sure, why not? This new creature then separates itself into two so that it doesn't look like a demon child from the depths of hell itself, forming the creature that it would later call Akumu. At this point, Agate is almost completely gone from its mind, leaving only certain memories such as her goals in the bête noire, whose body is now merely an empty shell. After the death of the kingdom's current rulers, it falls into ruin. However, at some point, a group of people is formed whose purpose, at least I assume, is to monitor the barrier, train in the handling of magical substances, and maybe even spread rumors about Mount Ebott to keep people away from it, even though no human had yet fallen into the underground. Although humans eventually lose their magic abilities, at least in that specific area of the world, apparently there will be more details about that whole thing in the prequels, this group continues to exist well into the 22nd century, assuming that Cammy is interpreting Undertale to take place about a century after 2016, when it is now known as the Anti-Monsters Department, or AMD, which is part of the Human Safety Organization, or HSO. At some point, control of the AMD is taken over by Jessica Gray, which is presumably her professional/maiden name, while her husband, Noah Rootro, presumably a descendant of the wizard Milo Rootro, takes control of the city as a mayor of sorts. When Noah dies in a car accident, his position passes over his brother Rave because he is too young at the time. Instead, Jessica takes over that position as well because that's how politics work, don't question it. Realizing how busy Jessica would be as both the director of the AMD and the city's head politician, Rave's family offers to take in Jessica's daughter, Alina. Jessica refuses, but she truly does become too caught up in her work to spend time with her daughter. After her mother breaks a promise to come to a ballet performance, Alina runs away toward the mountain, becoming the sixth and final human whose soul Asgore collects, the soul of integrity. 20 years later, during which time Rave starts his own tech manufacturing company, the barrier is destroyed. The AMD captures the hate that escapes from the mountain, and becomes one of the only groups to try and oppose the monster's freedom. Rave's company begins to focus on using the magic that they now have access to create weapons. And the Bête Noire realizes that the time has finally come to fulfill its purpose. 1 month after the monsters go free, everything seems to be going perfectly fine. Frisk has gone to live with Toriel and Azriel. Toriel has opened a special school to teach children how to use magic. Gaster has been widely recognized for his breakthroughs in using magic to improve technology, and Undyne has even gotten a job as a police officer. Even though Frisk usually leaves all of the politics to Asgore, he is still the ambassador between humans and monsters, which means that it is up to him to convince Jessica Gray and the AMD to sign a peace treaty with the monsters. The day before the signing, the AMD is the only party that still needs convincing. On his way to meet with Jessica, Frisk saves a girl named Betty from being hit by a car. However, as we all know, this girl is actually Bête Noire, using an illusion of a car just to get Frisk's attention. Hoping to gain Frisk's friendship and trust so that she could kill him when he least expects, she asks to join Frisk. Frisk agrees, and the two of them head to the AMD office. When Jessica continues refusing to sign, Frisk and Betty take Jessica first to Gaster's lab, and then to Toriel's school to show her all the good that monsters are doing. While demonstrating how she looks at the power of the children's souls, Toriel calls one of her students My Sunshine, which is what Jessica used to call her daughter. Her unbearable grief and guilt returning, Jessica leaves in tears. Before Frisk has the opportunity to follow her though, Toriel approaches Betty, causing her soul to begin to react, but Akumu stops Toriel before she can get any closer. Frisk and Betty then go off to look for Jessica. While they're looking near rival restaurants Muffet's Bakery and Grillby's, they run into Sans and Azriel. Frisk introduces them to Betty, then asks her about her soul, and she reveals that, just like Frisk is the only one with a red soul, she has the only pink one. Gaster and Sans begin to look into this, as neither of them had ever heard of such a thing. The following night, right before the big meeting, Frisk finds Jessica at the HSO, and she says that she has agreed to sign the peace treaty. Meanwhile, Bête Noire uses an illusion of a mother figure, who coincidentally looks exactly like Agate, to convince Gaster to let Betty stay at his lab for a few days. Right before the time has come to sign the treaty, Asgore is asked one final question: how he managed to break the barrier. He willingly admits to killing 6 human children that had fallen into the underground, with the intention to use their souls to break the barrier. He describes the last child that he murdered, and Jessica realizes that it was her daughter. She storms out of the building furious. Bête Noire takes this chance, and has Akumu disguise itself as Betty so that it can sneak out of the lab without Gaster noticing. Disguised in shadow, Bête Noire offers Jessica revenge, and she accepts, vowing to make the monsters pay for killing her sunshine. After admitting to the murder of several human children, Asgore is arrested. As he awaits further questioning in jail, Frisk goes back to Gaster's lab where Bête Noire has returned. Gaster warns Frisk that the AMD cameras around the city have suddenly become more active. Frisk, Betty, Azriel, Sans, and Papyrus then all go to watch Mettaton's first live report on the surface. Once they arrive, Bête Noire uses illusory mind tricks to fool Papyrus into thinking that there is someone stuck on top of a nearby crane, and Papyrus accidentally drops a load of giant metal crossbeams from the crane while trying to save that fake person. Sans uses his telekinesis to try and stop them from hurting anyone, but Jessica, now fully in league with Bête Noire, uses this opportunity to hit Sans with a blast from an anti-magic ray gun, a project that the HSO had not approved developing beyond a single prototype, which uses power from the user's soul to nullify a monster's magic abilities. However, this prototype was unfinished, and would sometimes crack the soul of the user. Jessica knows this, but still bent on revenge, she uses it anyway, temporarily ridding Bête Noire of one of the most powerful obstacles in its mission to kill Frisk. Jessica leaves without being seen, and Papyrus is arrested. Later that night, Frisk, Betty, Sans, and Azriel regroup to try and figure out a way to figure out what just happened and to sort it all out. However, when the only idea Frisk can come up with is to reset, Sans realizes that he was lying this whole time about his promise to never do it again, and he becomes furious with him, even threatening to kill him. Azriel steps between them, and he and Sans go to carry out Azriel's plan to look at the footage from the AMD cameras to try and figure out what happened. Since his abilities have slowly started to come back, Sans teleports them to the room where the AMD footage is kept. They find 2 strange things. One shot of Frisk randomly creating a shield in front of him to save Betty from a car that didn't really exist, and one shot of Betty leaving Gaster's lab the night of the peace treaty signing, when she was supposed to have been in the lab the whole time. Meanwhile, Gaster discovers the story of Copper and Agate from long ago, the story of Bête Noire's creation. Just as both Gaster and Sans realize that Betty was behind everything, Betty enters the recording room and reveals her true identity to Sans and Azriel. From the shadows, Jessica shoots Sans with the anti-magic ray again, causing her soul to begin to crack, and leaving Azriel vulnerable for Bête Noire to take his special soul, which, if you remember, is actually a human soul with a perfect balance of all 7 traits. Bête Noire is about to kill Azriel and take his soul, but Sans musters up the very last of his power to teleport in front of Azriel, taking the blow for him. Akumu takes Sans' soul, and his body turns to dust. Gaster and Papyrus both see and feel this event. Azriel escapes to warn the others of Betty's treachery. Because Bête Noire was only able to get 1 monster soul and not Azriel's special one, she forcibly takes a vial of the hate that escaped from the mountain away from Jessica, scarring her with visions of her greatest fears in order to get her to comply. Back at home, Azrael tells Frisk what had happened, and the two of them head to Gaster's lab to tell him as well, not knowing that he already knows. Meanwhile, Bête Noire realizes that Akumu was able to absorb enough magic from Sans' soul for them to begin their plan, the Soul Harvest. That morning, distraught over her own actions the previous night, Jessica goes to visit Asgore in jail. She also talks to Papyrus, who already knows what had happened to Sans. Even after she tells him that she played a part in Sans' death, he forgives her, restoring the original color of her soul from gray to blue. Arriving at Gaster's lab, Frisk and Azrael find it in shambles from Gaster's rage. Alphys is also there, helping to clean up. Out back, Gaster tells Frisk that only determination is able to defeat the Bête Noire. Suddenly, pink blobs of Bête Noire's making appear both inside and outside and start attacking. The Soul Harvest has begun. While Azrael defends Alphys, Frisk and Gaster take care of the blobs outside. Asgore, Undyne, Papyrus, and Jessica arrive soon after all the blobs are destroyed, and Gaster immediately tries to kill Jessica, only to be stopped by Papyrus. She then tells Gaster that she knows how to find Bête Noire, so he reluctantly agrees to let her help him and Alphys with a plan to finally destroy this ancient evil creature. Frisk, Azrael, and Asgore go to help Toriel defend and evacuate the school, where they figure the pink blobs would be likely to attack. Gaster, Alphys, and Jessica go to the Corps' new expansion facility, which is connected to the lab and several other buildings around the city underground through the network that has been bringing them all electricity from the Corps. This facility conveniently contains the Nullifier, a weapon that conveniently is capable of instantly annihilating any human or monster conveniently in the same room, but conveniently only works if the thing it blasts is a human or a monster.
Devices.
Bête Noire conveniently enters the Nullifier room through some sort of back entrance on its way to sneak attack the lab, and Gaster closes himself in the room with it. Only planning on using the Nullifier as a last resort, as it would kill him as well, Gaster attacks Bête Noire with the full intent to kill. Just as Gaster is about to win, one more child at the school is killed, allowing Bête Noire to use its special attack, Rhabdophobia, the fear of magic. Stealing Gaster's final attack, Bête Noire is easily able to bring Gaster to nearly the point of death. At the last moment, Jessica and Alphys enter the room. Jessica uses a light blue magic orb to teleport her and Gaster back to his lab. Alphys stays behind. Seeing that Gaster and Jessica have come back without Alphys, Undyne rushes to protect her. Using a green magic orb to form a shield of protection around herself, Alphys activates the Nullifier. However, it is completely ineffective, since Bête Noire is neither human nor monster. Just as Undyne enters the room, Bête Noire rips Alphys' soul from her body, then tricks Undyne into thinking that Alphys' soul is its own. Undyne hurls a spear at it, realizing too late that the soul is actually Alphys'. Alphys' soul shatters upon being pierced by the spear, and her body turns to dust. Bête Noire then uses the same spear to kill Undyne. But she wouldn't go down that easily. Aiming all of her anger at Bête Noire, Undyne is filled with determination, causing her body to transform. Waking up after a soon-forgotten dream of his fall into the core, Gaster finds himself being healed with magic by Papyrus, who tells him that Undyne went to protect Alphys. Unfortunately, Gaster's battle damaged his soul, so he is unable to teleport back to help. After seeing blood drip from his own wounds, Gaster realizes that the monsters must have been gaining some physical matter from eating human food. Because of this, he realizes that Undyne, now being able to muster up more determination than ever before, might be able to destroy Bête Noire. Now in her undying form, Undyne's determination does indeed allow her to put up a good fight, and she is able to almost completely destroy her foe, reducing the nullifier room to nothing but a giant crater in the process. However, at the last moment, Akumu eats the Vial of Hate, which completely restores and takes over Bete Noir's body, giving it a new level of power. Undyne's determination is not beat that easily though. Just as the hate is about to completely take over, Bete Noir breaks free from its control. Akumu lifts them out of the crater to recover, leaving Undyne now reduced to her normal form, alone with her guilt. Back at the school, all of the pink blobs have retreated. Seeing all of the death around him, Frisk realizes that he will never be able to beat Bete Noir in his current state, especially without the ability to save or load. He needs more determination. He needs more love. Meanwhile, Jessica uses Gaster's computer to broadcast a message over all of the AMD cameras throughout the city, telling people about Bete Noir and assuring them that Monsters Magic is the best way to combat the pink blobs, and that monsters are always willing to help. Undyne arrives at the lab and tells the others of Alphys's death, then goes to rest. Frisk, Azrael, Asgore, and Toriel arrive soon after. Knowing that he is going to soon have to distance himself from the others, Frisk tells Azrael about his history with the timeline, and how his actions created both the hate and Bete Noir. Frisk knows that he has to fight his enemy alone, but Azrael insists that Frisk will die without help. Frisk retaliates by reminding Azrael that he tried to kill Frisk a few times, and saying that at least Flowey wasn't such a coward. This deeply hurts Azrael. Not only that, but it is the first act of Frisk distancing himself from his friends, causing his level of violence to increase. That night, Ronan Cass, a police officer from a nearby district whom Jessica has put in charge of the magical defenses in the city, calls Jessica to tell her that a barrier has been put up around the city to keep Bete Noir inside. As she puts down the call, Jessica finishes signing the peace agreement with the monsters on behalf of the AMD. In the morning, Frisk is ready to go confront Bete Noir. Toriel tries to stop him, but in order to distance himself further, Frisk attacks Toriel, wounding her hand, and tells her that she is not his mother. Frisk then walks away with his love now at 3. Meanwhile, Gaster uses his computer to hack into a device of Jessica's that contains important AMD information, and he discovers that Kara's hate had escaped from the mountain and had been captured by the AMD. He then asks Undyne why she was unable to beat Bete Noir, and realizes that it would already be dead if it wasn't for the hate. Now having even more reason to despise Jessica, he tells her that he wishes he never met her, causing her soul to partially lose its color again. Meanwhile, Azrael tries to talk himself into reconciling with his past. Sitting down across from a flower that Sans had given him after Asgore's arrest, he falls asleep, then begins to dream that his past self, Flowey, is talking to him through the flower, which is brilliant character development for a character that's had 2 completely different personas. He's literally talking to himself, but it's also talking to both his past and his evil side. It makes so much sense. I love this scene so freaking much. After finally reconciling with Flowey, Azrael wakes up, remembers that he left his heart locket at home, then leaves to find Frisk. Frisk finds Bete Noir waiting at a nearby ravine, and their battle finally begins. Even at Love 3 though, Frisk is no match, especially after Bete Noir makes Frisk attack illusions of his friends and family, causing him to lose some of his determination. Just as Frisk is about to lose all of his strength, Azrael finds them and attacks Bete Noir. Even with how powerful he is, Bete Noir is easily able to trick him with an illusion of her scythe, leaving Akumu open to take his soul. Watching his closest friend's body crumble to dust, Frisk gets up. Aiming all of his anger and determination at Bete Noir, Frisk's HP is restored, and his love increases to 19. He no longer needs to distance himself from his friends in order to be willing to hurt the creature in front of him. Bête Noire senses the change, and eventually realizes that Frisk is too powerful, as he clearly begins to gain the upper hand in their fight. So, using a soul almost completely drained of magic and a large amount of hate, Bête Noire recreates the only one who was ever able to stop Frisk at Love 19, Sans. Gaster and Papyrus immediately sense Sans' return, seeing the event as it happens. Now knowing where Frisk and Bête Noire are, Gaster tries to teleport there, but his soul is not yet fully healed from his fight with Bête Noire. Despite Gaster's protests, Papyrus goes instead. Gaster quickly calls Asgore and Toriel to follow him to the ravine, while Jessica and Undyne stay behind. Considering that this version of Frisk never actually beat Sans, it is no surprise that Sans easily gains the upper hand in their fight. However, Papyrus gets there at the last second and stops Sans from killing Frisk. Papyrus then tries to make Sans remember who he is through all of the hate that now fills him, while Frisk focuses on fighting Bête Noire. When Gaster, Asgore, and Toriel arrive, Bête Noire uses the hate to create a barrier to stop them from interfering. Inside the barrier, Papyrus stops trying to defend himself, and reminds Sans that they're brothers, stopping Sans from killing him at the last second. Sans then purges the hate from himself, destroying the barrier around them and weakening Bête Noire, who is forced to retreat. Even though Sans falls into a coma because his soul no longer has enough magic left to sustain him, Frisk realizes that not all hope is lost for Azrael, and that they would be able to get him back the same way they got Sans back, using the opposite of hate. As they are leaving the ravine, Frisk realizes that increasing his love unnaturally, along with the fact that he is in hard mode and therefore not technically supposed to exist in this time and place, has caused him to start glitching. Knowing that if he disappears, then the whole timeline will be erased with him, even if he is able to defeat Bête Noire, he secretly starts trying to think of a way to sever his connection with the timeline. Fed up with being forced to retreat twice in a row, Bête Noire devises a plan so that it will not have to do so again. It absorbs the magic of one of the human souls that it had collected, but destroys all of the souls that had been corrupted by the hate, since the death of its host is the only way to permanently destroy it. Except there's one corrupted soul that it doesn't destroy. Looking into Azrael's memories and seeing that he has a good reason to hate everyone who loves him, Bête Noire uses the hate one more time, recreating a body for Azrael's soul. Finally, Bête Noire merges with Akumu and takes on its real form, making it even more powerful and indestructible than ever, even allowing it to resist being taken over by the hate. Meanwhile, pink blobs begin to attack the lab, and Jessica and Undyne fight back. However, prolonged use of the anti-magic ray causes Jessica's soul to continue cracking, leaving her vulnerable. Undyne is unable to save her for fear of killing Jessica instead, just like what happened with Alphys, and Jessica is wounded. At the last second, everyone else returns from the ravine and destroys the rest of the blobs. Asgore and Toriel attend to Jessica's wounds, while Gaster and Papyrus take Sans down to Gaster's old lab underground to try and figure out how to wake him up from his coma. Ronan calls Jessica's phone, and Asgore picks up. The two of them agree to set up safe perimeters at the city arena and the school where the people can gather. Meanwhile, inside the lab, a machine analyzes Sans and reports that he is not only in a coma, but is fallen down, meaning that he will die again soon. Gaster lies to Papyrus about the results, then forces him to stay in the lab with Sans, while he talks to Asgore and does some more research. As Frisk fills in everyone else on exactly what had been going on with him, and apologizes for his behavior, Gaster arrives and explains that since the hate can recreate monster bodies, but not human bodies since they're not made of magic, they may have a chance to save Azrael, assuming that Bête Noire would create a body for him to replace Sans. Figuring that Bête Noire would likely attack the arena next, Asgore, Toriel, and Frisk head there to try and help Asriel break free of the hate, while Undyne goes to help out at the school. Near the arena, Bete Noir uses Asriel to distract Asgore and Toriel while fighting Frisk. Asgore and Toriel try to remind Asriel of their love for him, but he is easily able to find reasons to hate them because of the wrongs they had done in the past. Asriel wounds Asgore, and Frisk has to step in to save him from getting killed. They realize that saving Asriel is not going to be as easy as they originally thought. Relishing the victory, but not wanting to end the fight so soon, Bete Noir allows them to retreat. Back at the lab, Frisk asks to talk with Gaster in the underground lab, and he agrees, realizing that Frisk is glitched. After taking a sample of Frisk's blood from which he hopes to extract determination, Gaster agrees to recreate on Frisk the experiment that had sent him to the Void, which he figures should go better this time because of Frisk's determination. And it does. Frisk ends up in the Void, where he meets none other than Kara, exactly who Frisk had been hoping to find. Even though Kara is mad at Frisk for putting his hate on him back in the underground, Frisk is able to convince Kara that they need his help to save Asriel. Kara needs to replace Frisk. Frisk will even take the place of what Kara had been to Frisk in the underground, or so he claims. However, this turns out to be Frisk's final lie. After giving Kara his soul, Frisk reveals that he is glitched and cannot go back, or else the timeline would be erased. Frisk then accesses the one part of the game files that he still has access to, his own files, and replaces his name with Kara's. He then gives Kara his memories, and replaces everyone else's memories of himself with memories of Kara, but makes sure to permanently erase the memories of all the horrible things he had done, so that Asriel would have no good reason to hate Kara. Finally, Frisk erases Kara's memories of him from the time they had spent together in the underground. Frisk then saves the game one final time, sending Kara back into the timeline to take his place. Then, he fades out of existence. Thus, the player is permanently removed from the game, finally making the world of Glitchtale completely self-sustaining. Almost. Only one thing remains connecting the world to the game: the checksum, the Bete Noir. Also, Kara may not have replaced Frisk as the player in function, but he still did so in name, meaning the connection is still partially there. In other words, if Kara dies, the timeline still erases along with him. The only way to break this connection is to destroy the checksum once and for all. Kara's return sets off an explosion in the lab, and Asgore and Toriel go down to investigate, only to find Kara and Gaster unconscious. Once they wake up after having been brought above ground, neither of them remember exactly why they had been down there, although Gaster does still have the test tube of Frisk's blood. Toriel is also affected by the memory change, feeling like it's been forever since she's seen Kara. They decide to rest and wait until the next day to try and confront Asriel again. Throughout the night, Gaster experiments with the determination from the blood, but all attempts to combine the determination with Monster Soul Essence end in failure. Then he gets the idea to combine the human blood with some of Undyne's blood, which he finds a dried sample of at the crater where the nullifier room used to be. This mixture is able to combine perfectly with the Monster Soul Essence, and Gaster injects it into Sans with hopes of waking him up. However, this does not solve the problem of Sans' soul not having enough magic to sustain him, and Gaster realizes that the determination would cause Sans to soon wake up, only to experience his own death soon after. The next day, Undyne meets Ronan near the school. Ronan is then summoned to the school to talk to Rave Rootro, who wants special permission to use his magical weapons in the city. In fact, without permission, Rave has already connected a machine called the Avalon to the school, a machine that stores massive amounts of magic inside it, and can use the magic of any trait to create a super strong dome-shaped barrier around an area. Undyne comes along with Ronan to talk to him. However, despite Ronan having been put in charge by Jessica, Rave demands to talk to her face to face. Ronan calls Jessica, who is in the lab still recovering from her wound, and fills her in, and she agrees to talk to Rave. Ronan sends a vehicle and Jessica's field suit to the lab. In the meantime, Jessica puts on some clothes Toriel found for her, as well as taking a teleporter like the one she had used to get Gaster out of the nullifier room, which Toriel had found while looking for said clothes. Papyrus volunteers to go with Jessica, knowing that it would be dangerous for her to go alone, but Gaster disagrees, not wanting Papyrus to be in danger either. The argument escalates until Gaster attacks Papyrus, but then he comes to himself and realizes what he's done. After Papyrus explains that he's tired of being treated naive, and that he can feel that Sans is not doing well despite what Gaster had been telling him, Gaster apologizes and Papyrus agrees to stay at the lab to look after his brother. Gaster goes with Jessica instead, and Toriel, Asgore, and Kara head out to get Azriel's heart locket from their own house, leaving Papyrus alone at the lab. Meanwhile, Bete Noir and Azriel prepare themselves to attack the arena, and the pink blobs all around the city begin to gather together in the sewers. Having arrived at their house, Kara takes the locket from Azriel's room, and then heads off to the arena with Asgore and Toriel. At the school, Rave and Jessica meet, and after a brief argument, Rave agrees to wait until Jessica or Ronan give him the orders to start using his weapons. Jessica leaves behind a device that sets the destination of the teleporter Toriel found for her, as well as the peace agreement between the humans and monsters, then leaves. Jessica and Gaster split up with Ronan and Undyne to go around the city and make sure people made it to safety. Meanwhile, Bete Noir is spotted near the arena, so the barrier around it is sealed and the alarm set off. Inside the arena, Mettaton, realizing what this must mean, goes out to distract Bete Noir until Kara arrives, also telling one of his co-workers to get him a briefcase containing his Neo body. Bete Noir destroys the barrier around the arena easily and proceeds to murder some people until Mettaton arrives and shoots it with his giant laser spotlight, because that's a thing he has, I guess. He doesn't fare so well either, but he's able to hold out until his co-worker arrives with the briefcase, and he takes on his Neo form. As Sans' condition continues to worsen, Papyrus is attacked by several pink blobs. He's able to hold them off for a while, but more and more keep coming. Eventually, he gets wounded to the point where he's forced to use an attack that completely destroys the entire above-ground portion of the lab, and leaves Papyrus unconscious. Back at the arena, Mettaton Neo fights valiantly, but is no match for Bete Noir. He's barely saved from death by Muffet and Grilby, who have put their restaurant rivalry to rest so they can fight against the real threat. Neither of them stand much of a chance either, but in the end, Mettaton's plan to be a distraction works. Kara arrives and faces Bete Noir once more, while Asgore and Toriel tend to the wounded. Azriel steps in to fight Kara, and Bete Noir ominously warns them of another looming threat. Meanwhile, Undyne runs into Ronan's son, Hugo, who has been looking for Ronan. With him is a boy named Zachary, who is blind but has been able to sense magic ever since the monsters returned, and Zachary's mother. Zachary tells Undyne that he's been seeing a bunch of magic dots around the city, gathering together to form something big, and it's moving under the streets as they speak. Ronan, who had been on the phone with Jessica, sees his son, and angrily tells him to go back to the school, but Zachary warns them that it's started to move straight towards where Jessica and Gaster are. Ronan orders his son to take the others back to the school, and then he and Undyne rush to help their friends. A giant pink blob emerges, several stories tall, and begins to make its way towards the school where it senses that lots of people have gathered. No human magic is any use against it. At one point, Hugo, who had disobeyed his dad's order to go back to the school, saves Ronan. But then Ronan takes a huge blow for him. Having no other choice, Jessica tells Rave to use whatever he had brought to help. Before he can, though, the giant blob sends the top half of a building raining down on Gaster and Jessica. Luckily, it falls in such a way that Jessica isn't terribly wounded, but Gaster's legs are trapped, and the rubble is likely to collapse on them any second. Jessica suggests using the teleporter that Toriel had found to escape, but Gaster tells her that this teleporter is only powerful enough to teleport one person. Both of them think the other should do it, Jessica because of her integrity, and Gaster because he doesn't think that he deserves for someone to sacrifice their own life for his. Gaster tells Jessica that he forgives her in an attempt to get her to leave, but he isn't really ready to yet at this point, and Jessica sees through this. She realizes that her soul is still cracking, and that saving her own life would be pointless. She activates the teleporter, but then gives it to Gaster, saving his life while sacrificing her own, restoring her integrity. The debris collapses in on her, and she finally gets to see her husband and her daughter again. Papyrus wakes up in the ruins of Gaster's lab, and is soon greeted by Sans, who had finally woken up because of the determination that had been injected into him, and had teleported above ground by using up a good portion of the little bit of magic his soul had left in it. Sans remembers a bit of what he had done under the Hate's control, and also realizes that a certain something is missing from their memories. Dismissing the strange thought for the moment, the brothers begin to make their way to the arena to help Kara. Back at the school, Rave tries to contact Ronan after Jessica's call drops, but receives no response. Gaster arrives at the teleporter's set location and tells Rave the news of Jessica's death in probably the coldest way possible. Rave heals Gaster's broken legs with plot armor, I mean a device that uses green magic to heal basically any wounds, but also seems to have a limit before it has to be charged again or something. It's also apparently made from this metal called arnesite, which is a metal that can contain and store magic, which I'm not sure if that will be important later, but I'm gonna mention it anyway because I'm guessing it probably powers a bunch of Rave's machines, and could also very possibly show up in the prequels. Gaster then heads for the arena. Rave, now in charge of the city's defenses, quickly comes up with a plan to lure the giant pink blob away from the school. He has his people disconnect the Avalon from the school and bring it to a nearby park, where he hopes to attract the blob with the machine's crazy amount of magic. Meanwhile, inside the arena, Kara, Asgore, and Toriel manage to separate Azriel from Bete Noir. Kara prepares to attempt to release Azriel from the Hate's control outside the arena, while Asgore and Toriel work together to try and hold off the monster inside for as long as possible. Undyne, still in the dangerous streets, leads Ronan, still unconscious, and Hugo to safety. The safety is momentary, however, as the chaos being caused by the giant blob almost sends a building on top of them. Undyne stops it with her spears, but knows her strength won't last long. But then she talks to Alphys? In some sort of spiritual way, or maybe she's just imagining it? Either way, it fills her with determination, and she once again becomes the Undying, allowing her to easily disintegrate the falling building. Rave then finds them, heals Ronan's wounds with his Healy device thingy, and then Undyne agrees to go with him to try and destroy the giant blob. Ronan tags along, and Hugo is taken back to the school. Back inside the arena, Bete Noir taunts Asgore with memories of his past, both from the underground and before the war. But when it catches Toriel's fire attack, he recognizes something in its fighting style. He recognizes Agate Lightveil. The creature then uses Toriel's regrets of leaving her kingdom behind, along with its ability to make people see things that they fear, to cause Toriel to see Asgore's fight with Bete Noir as though he is killing the 6 human children all over again. She deals a massive blow to Asgore, knocking him unconscious or worse, and Bete Noir releases her from its spell, just to show her what she has done. Outside, Kara and Asriel's fight is taken to the rooftops. Kara attempts to help Asriel remember their friendship by showing them his heart locket. However, this only reminds Asriel that Kara destroyed his own heart locket while possessed by hate back during their fight in the underground. Unable to raise a weapon against his friend and brother, Kara is killed by Asriel. Kara finds himself on the game over screen and watches in horror as the timeline begins to erase. Before fading from existence himself, Kara, desperately looking for one last chance to change something, musters up as much determination as he can and is able to enter a previous point in the timeline, specifically the time when Asriel dreamt about talking to Flowey. Still clutching the heart locket, Kara enters the room where Asriel was sleeping through the window. He puts a blanket over Asriel's shoulders, then places the heart locket on a nearby desk. Kara then disappears completely, but the change he had made was enough. His actions created a completely new timeline, with 2 separate heart lockets. Upon waking, Asriel takes the locket from the desk and heads out to find Frisk. Other than those few things, the 2 timelines are mostly the same so far. We haven't seen what the new outcome is yet, although I have been told by a certain reliable source that we will learn what happens in the next episode. And technically, since the version of this scene that we see in Love Part 2, where it technically happens chronologically, is the one from this second timeline, that means that all of Glitchtale that we've seen has technically taken place in the second timeline, but I explained it this way because I thought it would be a little easier to understand. And there you have it. That is all the Glitchtale lore we know so far. Just as a quick end note, you may remember that in the previous version of this video, the one that was on Kami's channel, I included one of Kami's comics about what happened to certain characters in the failed timeline, the one where Kara died. I was planning on including even more of them in this one, because Kami has done quite a few of those actually, but things with those just weren't quite adding up chronologically, so I had a little conversation with Kami about them, and she basically said that they're essentially non-canon, at least for the purposes of a chronology video like this. So yeah, that's why those aren't here this time. In terms of my future projects coming up, I mentioned most of them in my Underverse Season 2 opening analysis video, so go check that out if you watch Underverse and you haven't seen that yet. As I've been saying in other videos, there will be an Underverse timeline as soon as the X-Tale miniseries is done. We're just waiting for one more video on that, and then I will start working on that. Hopefully it won't take as long to get out as this update took me. And I still would like to do a Kingdom Hearts timeline explained video once the mobile game Union Cross finishes getting story updates finally. That will be very nice. Well, they just announced another mobile game, so we'll have to see what I end up wanting to do about that. I do want to do more Kingdom Hearts content, just in general. I guess I kind of have been with the Union Cross reactions and the Remind DLC reactions and stuff. So if you are a Kingdom Hearts fan, you can look forward to that. And if you're not a Kingdom Hearts fan, you can just watch my video on why Undertale fans would probably like Kingdom Hearts, so you can become a fan. If you want more consistent updates from me about my projects and stuff, you can follow me on Twitter at GamesPhil. I'm pretty active on there. Although if you're if you are just getting into Kingdom Hearts, you might not want to, because I kind of retweet a lot of things that kind of spoil stuff, so I'm sorry about that. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around until the end of this video, and I will see you guys in my next video, or whichever video of mine you choose to watch next. Bye!